Tonight, we're taking a look at a major conflict that's brewing inside one of the world's biggest tech companies. Over at Amazon, a really aggressive push into artificial intelligence is being met with some pretty serious resistance from its own employees. So let's break down exactly what is happening. This whole story really starts with this number, 1,039. That's how many Amazon employees, we're talking everyone from senior engineers to warehouse workers, have put their names on a public letter sounding the alarm about the direction the company's heading. And believe me, they are not mincing words. The letter warns that Amazon's warp speed approach to AI development could cause, and I'm quoting here, staggering damage. I mean, that's a direct challenge, and it's coming from inside the company. So, what are they so concerned about? Well, the open letter really breaks it down into three main alarms. Okay, so their concerns focus on three key things. First, the massive environmental cost of building and running AI. Second, the threat to jobs and working conditions. And third, the potential for AI-powered surveillance to be misused. Let's start with the climate impact. The employees point out that even with Amazon's climate pledges, its emissions have actually grown by 35% since 2019. They're also pointing to a planned $150 billion investment in new data centers, a lot of them in areas already struggling with drought. And they accuse the company of using its AI to help fossil fuel companies find new places to drill. Next up is job security, and this is a big one. The CEO, Andy Jassy, has actually said he expects to employ fewer humans. And internally, workers are reporting more pressure, higher output goals, and more surveillance, especially in the logistics centers. This is all happening while the company is legally challenging the National Labor Relations Board. That's the very agency that's supposed to protect workers' rights. And that brings us to the third alarm, surveillance. The letter claims Amazon has lobbied against state-level AI regulations, worked with companies that make software for autonomous weapons, and provides cloud services that help power mass deportation. They also bring up the expansion of Ring's AI features, which makes it even easier for police to get access to user footage. So, how does Amazon's leadership see this AI future? Well, their vision paints a very, very different picture. CEO Andy Jassy calls generative AI a once-in-a-lifetime kind of technology. He's framing it as a tool that's going to speed up innovation and, make the jobs that are left even more engaging and fun. But, and this is a big but, in that same message, Jassy was pretty direct about the bottom line. He stated very clearly that these efficiency gains from AI are expected to lead to a smaller corporate workforce. That's a public acknowledgement that future job cuts are coming. These tensions over AI aren't just happening in a vacuum. They really reflect a much broader friction between Amazon's management and its employees. A perfect example is the backlash against the strict 5-day return to office policy. In another open letter, hundreds of employees said that the policy completely broke their trust, talking about extreme commutes and issues with family and medical needs. So when management asks employees to act like owners and put in startup level effort, the response you see on internal forums can be pretty raw. This comment right here really captures that feeling that the demands just don't match the rewards. Leadership has tried to justify this big push by pointing to competitors who are supposedly working around the clock. But for a lot of workers, the question is pretty simple. Why push for that level of intensity without the compensation or the job security to back it up? This whole debate over automation gets a lot more personal when you start to look at how these systems are reportedly impacting some of the company's most vulnerable employees. We're talking about multiple workers with disabilities who have filed federal complaints with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. They're alleging that the company's AI-driven system for handling medical accommodations is systematically failing them. Amazon describes its process as human-led and empathetic, but employees are telling a very different story. They describe this opaque, automated system that gives out generic and often just bizarrely unsuitable solutions, like suggesting a stroke survivor should relocate hundreds of miles for a new job. An internal survey that was done by disabled workers paints a really stark picture. It found that over 70% of the people who responded felt their requests for accommodation were either flat out denied or just weren't handled properly by the system. So, what does this all add up to? Well, this internal struggle at Amazon really represents a fundamental clash of visions for the future of work, for technology, and for corporate responsibility. On one side, you have employees who are demanding ethical guardrails on things like climate and surveillance. They want to say in how AI is used, and they want protection against job loss. They see this warp speed approach as genuinely dangerous.
And then, on the other side, you have a leadership team that's committed to moving even faster. For them, the priority is rapid AI deployment to drive innovation, create efficiencies, and stay on top of the market.
Ultimately, the battle inside Amazon really mirrors a much larger question for all of us. As this incredibly powerful technology continues to reshape our world, the really critical question becomes who gets to decide how it's used, and who actually has the power to set the terms.